Most people see a Washington quarter as just 25 cents, but some of these coins are worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Today we're looking at the top one. Washington quarters that could completely change the way you look at pocket change. If you've got one of these hiding in your collection, or even in loose change, you might be holding a small fortune. Let's dive into the list and see which quarters made the cut.
The Washington quarter has been around since the early 1930s, but the 1983 version has a bit of an unexpected twist in its history. It wasn't a low mintage year in terms of sheer numbers, far from it. In Philadelphia alone, more than 673 million were struck, and in Denver, about 618 million. On top of that, there were a few million proofs struck in San Francisco for collectors. So, you'd think with numbers like that, the year wouldn't matter much. But here's the catch: in 1983, the mint didn't release the standard uncirculated mint sets that collectors often rely on to get pristine examples. That meant the vast majority of 1983 quarters went straight into circulation, clinking around in cash registers and pockets from day one. Why does that matter? Because over the decades, coins in circulation get banged up. They pick up scratches, lose their luster, and get worn down. For collectors, condition is everything. So while there might be hundreds of millions of 1983 quarters out there, finding one in truly high grade, sharp details, bright luster, no distracting marks, is surprisingly tough. And when supply gets tight for top quality examples, prices go up. So what kind of value are we talking about? If your 1983 quarter has been well used, it's likely still worth about face value. That's the reality for most of them. But if it's uncirculated and has been preserved in great shape, you could be looking at something much more interesting. Coins graded in the lower uncirculated range, like MS-63, might sell for a handful of dollars. Move up to MS-65, and you could be in the $40 to $60 range. MS-66 or MS-67 examples? Those can easily go into the hundreds, sometimes higher if they're especially nice and attract competitive bidders. And that's without even talking about errors, because this is where the potential jumps from nice little bonus to wow, that's a payday. Minting errors can happen in all sorts of ways, and they fascinate collectors. One of the more famous varieties from 1983 is known as the spitting eagle. On the reverse side, there's a small die gouge between the eagle's beak and neck that makes it look like the bird is spitting. It's subtle, but collectors love quirky things like that, and high-grade examples of the spitting eagle can fetch far more than standard coins. Then there are the big, bold errors, like off-center strikes. If the design is shifted noticeably so part of the coin is blank, collectors take notice, especially if the date is still visible. The more dramatic the shift, the higher the value tends to be. Even a modest off-center strike can be worth many times face value, and the more extreme examples can bring in well over $100. But the real showstoppers are the major oddities, like coins struck on the wrong metal planchet or overstruck on other coins or tokens. There's a legendary example of a 1983 quarter that was struck on an amusement token. You can actually see the token's original design peeking through, including the words "This is my lucky day" and little clovers. That coin ended up selling for an amount that could buy you a solid used car, because for error collectors, it's one of a kind. And sometimes, it's not even about wild visual errors, it's about the hunt for the finest known examples. There's a part of the hobby where collectors compete in something called registry sets. These are collections of coins graded by third-party services, and the goal is to have the best possible examples in the world. Registry collectors will sometimes pay top dollar for a coin that's technically common, simply because it's graded a hair higher than anything else available. For a coin like the 1983 quarter, where gem examples are already rare, that competition can drive prices into surprising territory. Now, let's get practical. If you have a 1983 quarter and you're wondering if it's worth anything, the first thing to do is check the mint mark. It's a small letter on the obverse side near Washington's ponytail. A P means Philadelphia, a D means Denver, and proofs will have an S. In certain grades, one mint might be more sought after than the other, but both have their desirability in high grades. Next, look closely at the condition. Hold the coin under good light and tilt it back and forth. Does it still have that original mint luster, that bright, cartwheel-like shine? Or is it dull from wear? Check the high points, Washington's hair above his ear, the tops of the eagle's wing. These are the first places to lose detail when a coin circulates. If you think yours looks sharp, compare it to pictures of graded coins online to get a rough idea of its condition. But if you really suspect you've got something exceptional, you might want to send it to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC. They'll assign it an official grade and seal it in a protective holder, which adds credibility and often boosts the selling price. Once you know what you have, you've got a decision to make: keep it for your collection or sell it. If you decide to sell, you've got a few options. eBay is one of the biggest platforms for coin sales, and it gives you access to a global audience. Just remember to search for sold listings, not just active ones, to get a realistic idea of what your coin might bring. Anyone can list a coin for thousands of dollars, but that doesn't mean it will sell. Sold listings tell the real story. For truly exceptional coins, like high-grade examples or rare errors, you might want to consider a coin auction house. They specialize in marketing coins to serious collectors, and they can sometimes get you a better price than selling directly online. On the other hand, if your coin is nice but not a world beater, you might do better selling it yourself and avoiding the auction fees. When you list your coin, presentation matters. Use clear, well-lit photos that show both sides, plus close-ups of any interesting details or errors. Be accurate in your description, mention the mint mark, the grade if it's certified, and any notable features. Set a reasonable starting price, but leave room for negotiation. Serious buyers often prefer to make offers rather than jump straight to the listed price. And here's the fun part: if you think you might have a valuable one, tell me about it in the comments. Let me know if it has a mint mark, describe its condition, and mention anything unusual you notice. I'll give you my take on what it might be worth and how you should go about selling it. Sometimes the smallest detail can make the biggest difference.